I bid to $100 on storage unit 47 because the door was rusty and nobody else wanted it. The auctioneer's gavel came down with a crack that echoed through the concrete hallway. Sold to the lady in the back. That lady was me. 32 years old, 3 months behind on rent, and desperate enough to gamble my last paycheck on someone else's abandoned junk. My name is Claire Mason, and I'd been flipping storage units for 6 months, ever since the restaurant where I worked closed down. Most units contained garbage, broken furniture, moldy clothes, boxes of someone's shattered dreams. But occasionally, you'd find something worth selling. A vintage lamp, old tools. Once, I found a box of vinyl records that paid my electric bill for 2 months. I cut the lock on Unit 47 with bolt cutters, my hand shaking slightly. The metal door groaned as I rolled it up. Dust particles danced in the afternoon light. Inside sat a single item, a massive safe, forest green, with a gold combination dial. Probably from the 1970s. No furniture, no boxes, just the safe. I stood there staring at it, my heart hammering against my ribs for reasons I couldn't explain. The safe was too heavy to move alone. I called my neighbor, Troy, a college kid, who helped me haul furniture for $20 and pizza. He showed up 30 minutes later in his beat-up truck, took one look at the safe, and whistled low. That thing's got away for £100, he said. Can we move it? I asked. Troy circled the safe like it was a wild animal. Maybe. Where's it going? My apartment. 3rd floor. He laughed until he realized I was serious. Claire, you're insane. We spent 2 hours wrestling that safe onto a furniture dolly, down the hallway, into his truck. By the time we hauled it up 3 flights of stairs to my apartment, my arms were trembling and Troy looked ready to collapse. We set it in the corner of my tiny living room, where it sat like a green metal elephant, completely out of place, next to my second-hand sofa and plastic coffee table. Troy left with his $20, shaking his head. Good luck with that monster. I locked the door behind him and turned to face the safe. The combination dial gleamed in the dim light. I had no idea how to open it, but I knew someone who might, and JLo's lock and key occupied a narrow storefront between a nail salon and a check cashing place on the east side of Chicago. The shop smelled like metal shavings and machine oil. Behind the counter stood Angelo Russo, 73 years old, with white hair and hands that never stopped shaking from some old injury he never talked about. Claire, he said when I walked in, what trouble are you bringing me today? I'd known Angelo since I was 16, when I lived in the group home 3 blocks from his shop. He'd taught me how to pick basic locks, said every girl should know how to get herself out of a locked room. He'd never asked why I needed to know. I'd never told him about the foster father who liked to lock me in the basement. I need help opening a safe, I said, and JLo's shaking hands went still for just a second. What kind of safe? Old one, green, combination lock. Maybe from the 70s. He studied my face with sharp brown eyes that missed nothing. Where'd you get it? Storage auction. What's inside? That's what I'm trying to find out. Angelo closed his shop early, which he never did. He followed me back to my apartment in his ancient Cadillac, carrying a leather bag full of tools I'd never seen before. When he saw the safe sitting in my living room, he stopped in the doorway. Madonna, he whispered. What? He walked closer, his shaking hands reaching out to touch the gold dial. I know this safe. My stomach dropped. How? Angelo pulled a pair of reading glasses from his shirt pocket and examined the safe's door. In the bottom right corner, barely visible, were 3 tiny initials, DVC, Dominic Vincent Castellano, he said quietly. They called him the Don. This was his personal safe. The one that went missing 30 years ago when the feds raided his estate. I felt the floor tilt beneath my feet. The mob boss? The biggest in Chicago. Before your time. Angelo straightened up, his face pale. Claire, where exactly did you buy this? Storage auction on West Madison. Unit 47. Why? Because the Don's ledgers disappeared the same night he did. The FBI tore this city apart looking for them. So did every rival family. Angelo tried the combination dial with those trembling hands. It didn't budge. Original lock, he muttered. Whoever stashed this didn't crack it. They just hid it and hoped nobody would find it. Can you open it? I asked. He looked at me for a long time. I can? But Claire, if what I think is inside is actually inside, you're holding something a lot of people would kill for. What's in the ledgers? Names, dates, money trails. Everyone the Don did business with for 40 years. Politicians he owned. Cops on his payroll. Judges who fixed cases. Bank accounts in the Cayman Islands. And J-Lo's hands shook worse. The kind of information that could still destroy powerful people. I thought about my empty bank account. The eviction notice taped to my door. The ramen noodles I'd been eating for dinner every night. How much would something like that be worth? And J-Lo's eyes went dark. To the right people. Millions. To the wrong people. Your life. He packed his tools back into his bag. I'm leaving. You should too. Sell the safe to a scrapyard. Don't open it. Forget you ever saw it, but he'd already told me what was inside. Angelo left without opening the safe. I sat on my sofa staring at it for 3 hours, my mind spinning. Millions of dollars, or death. Maybe both. At midnight, my phone rang. Unknown number. Hello. Miss Mason. The voice was smooth, educated, calm as ice water. You purchased storage unit 47 today. I'd like to buy the contents from you. My mouth went dry. Who is this? Someone willing to pay generously. $50,000 cash for the safe and whatever's inside it. $50,000. More money than I'd seen in my entire life. I could pay my rent for 2 years. Get a real job. Stop gambling on storage units. How do you know what I bought? I asked. The auction house keeps records. My associates monitor such things. A pause. Do we have a deal? Every instinct screamed at me to say yes. Take the money. Walk away. But something in the man's voice, to calm, to controlled, made me hesitate. I need time to think. You have 24 hours. I'll call tomorrow. The line went dead. I didn't sleep that night. I sat watching the safe, wondering who else knew I had it. The auction house had my name and address. They'd sold me the unit. How many people had that information? At 6 a.m., I called the auction company. A bored woman answered. Madison Storage Auctions. I bought unit 47 yesterday. Can you tell me who owned it? We don't give out that information, please. It's important, she sighed. The unit belonged to a man named Felix Ortega. Died 6 months ago. No next of kin. Rent went unpaid, so we auctioned the contents. That's all I know. Felix Ortega. I wrote the name down. Did anyone else ask about that unit? Yeah, actually. 3 different people called asking about it before the auction. Offered to buy it sight unseen. She lowered her voice. Between you and me, I think you got something valuable. Be careful. I hung up and searched for Felix Ortega online. I found an obituary from the Chicago Tribune. Felix Ortega, age 78, died of heart failure. Survived by no one. I went back to Angelo's shop at noon. He was helping a customer, a woman who needed keys made. When she left, he locked the door behind her and flipped the sign to closed. You're still thinking about opening it, he said. Someone called me last night. Offered $50,000 for the safe. Angelo's face went white. And you said? I said I'd think about it. Madonna, Claire. You should have said yes. He sat down heavily on his work stool. If they're offering 50 sight unseen, what's inside is worth 10 times that. Maybe more. And now they know you're considering other options. I need to know what's in there. Why? So you can die knowing. I pulled a chair over and sat across from him. My whole life, I've had nothing. 17 foster homes before I aged out. Minimum wage jobs. Apartments with cockroaches. I'm one emergency away from being homeless. I looked at the safe in my mind's eye. This might be the only chance I ever get to change that. Angelo studied my face. Finally, he nodded. You got your mother's stubbornness. Angelo knew my mother. That's why he'd helped me when I was 16. My mother had worked as a waitress at a restaurant he used to frequent. She died when I was 5 car accident. I barely remembered her face. She would have told you to walk away, Angelo said quietly. But I'm not her, he sighed and stood up. Then we do this carefully. And we do it tonight, after dark. You don't tell anyone. You don't take any calls. You disappear for 24 hours. Why after dark? Because if the wrong people are watching your apartment, we don't want them seeing me go in with my tools. He pulled a piece of paper from behind his register and wrote an address. This is my nephew's garage, Vincent. He's out of town for the week. We move the safe there, open it there, and decide what to do based on what we find. Can we trust Vincent? Angelo smiled sadly. Vincent's been dead for 3 years. Heart attack. I keep his garage because I don't know what else to do with it. Troy helped me move the safe again, this time for $40 and 2 pizzas. I told him I was taking it to get appraised. He didn't ask questions. By 9 p.m., the safe sat in Vincent's garage, a small concrete building behind a row of townhouses on the south side. Angelo arrived an hour later, carrying his tool bag and a bottle of wine. "For your nerves," he said, handing it to me. I'd never seen him work like this. His shaking hands moved with absolute precision. He set up his equipment: a stethoscope, a tension wrench, a notepad. He pressed the stethoscope against the safe's door and began turning the dial slowly, listening. "How long will this take?" I asked. "Could be an hour. Could be 6. I sat on an overturned bucket and watched. The garage was cold, our breath visible in the air. Outside, I could hear distant traffic, someone's dog barking, the normal sounds of a neighborhood settling in for the night. Angelo worked in silence, his face a mask of concentration. "Turn the dial. Listen. Write something down. Turn it back. Listen again." 3 hours later, something clicked. Angelo's whole body went rigid. "Got the first number," he whispered. "My heart was hammering." "How many numbers total?" 3. Standard combination lock. He kept working, sweat beading on his forehead despite the cold. Another hour passed. Another click. To down. I stood up, unable to sit still anymore. My hands were shaking worse than Angelo's. This was real. Whatever was inside, we were minutes away from seeing it. At 1:47 a.m., the final tumbler fell into place. Angelo turned the handle. The safe door swung open with a groan of old hinges. We both stared inside. The safe was packed with ledger books. Dozens of them, bound in cracked black leather, stacked neatly from top to bottom. And sitting on top of the ledgers was a sealed envelope with 2 words written on it in faded ink. "For Claire." My legs went weak. "That's impossible." Angelo pulled the envelope out with trembling hands. "Your name." "Your mother's handwriting." My mother's been dead for 27 years. I tore open the envelope with shaking hands. Inside was a letter, written in the same faded ink, dated 3 weeks before my mother died. "My dearest Claire," it began. "If you're reading this, it means I'm gone. And somehow you found what I hid. I worked for Dominic Castellano for 10 years as his personal secretary. I kept his books. I knew everything. When he disappeared, I took the ledgers to protect you. The Don had enemies who would use them, and I couldn't let that happen. My mother worked for the mob. The room spun. I gave the ledgers to Felix Ortega, the Don's driver, the only man I trusted. I told him if anything happened to me, to hide them where no one would think to look. To wait until you were old enough to decide what to do with them. I'm sorry to leave you this burden, baby girl. But these ledgers are worth millions to the right beer. Or they're proof that can finally bring justice to people who deserve it." The letter was signed Mom, with a small heart drawn next to it. I looked up at Angelo with tears streaming down my face. Angelo pulled out one of the ledgers and opened it. Page after page of handwritten entries in my mother's neat script. Names I recognized from history books and news articles, senators, judges, police chiefs. Beside each name were dates, amounts, services rendered. "Your mother was protecting you," Angelo said quietly. "Felix must have put the safe in storage under his own name so it wouldn't be connected to you. When he died, it went to auction, and fate brought you to it. She knew I'd buy storage units. She knew you'd find a way to survive. You're her daughter." He closed the ledger carefully. "The question is, what do you do now?" I wiped my face. "You said these could destroy powerful people. People who are still alive, still in power, still dangerous." I thought about the man on the phone offering 50,000. They're scared. That's why they want to buy them from me. They don't want to kill me and risk the ledgers going public. Angelo nodded slowly. "As long as you have them, you have leverage. The moment you give them up, you're expendable." I spent the next 3 hours reading through the ledgers while Angelo stood guard at the garage door. My mother's handwriting covered every page, meticulous, organized, devastating. She'd documented everything. Bribes paid to fix zoning laws. Money laundered through construction companies. Murders ordered and carried out. Witnesses who disappeared, and she'd kept it all secret to protect me. One name appeared over and over: Theodore Hastings. I recognized it immediately. He was currently a U.S. Senator from Illinois, considered a frontrunner for the next presidential election. According to my mother's ledgers, he'd been on the Don's payroll since 1987, receiving monthly payments of $50,000 in exchange for favorable legislation. The payments stopped in 1995, the year my mother died. The year the ledgers disappeared. He's the one who called me, I said out loud. Angelo looked up. You don't know that. Who else would be desperate enough to offer $50,000 sight unseen? Who else has that kind of money and that much to lose? I stood up, my decision crystallizing. I'm going to meet with him, Claire. No, I want to see his face when he realizes what I have. The phone rang at exactly midnight, 24 hours after the first call. I answered, Miss Mason, have you made your decision? I want to meet in person, I said, keeping my voice steady. Somewhere public. Tomorrow at noon. Silence on the other end. Then, Grant Park, by the Buckingham Fountain. Come alone. How will I know you? I'll know you. He hung up. Angelo grabbed my arm. This is insane. You're walking into a trap, maybe, but I'm not bringing the ledgers. I'm bringing copies of 3 pages. I pulled out the pages I'd already photographed and printed. Just enough to prove I have what he wants. And then what? Then I negotiate. Not for $50,000. For $5 million. And immunity. I met Angelo's eyes. My mother kept these secret for my whole childhood. She died protecting them. I'm not letting that be for nothing. Angelo was quiet for a long time. Finally, he nodded. I'm coming with you. Hidden. Watching. He said, come alone. I don't care what he said. You're not doing this without backup. I didn't sleep. At dawn, I went back to my apartment, showered, and put on the only professional outfit. I owned a black blazer and slacks I'd bought at Goodwill for job interviews. I looked at myself in the mirror. My mother's green eyes stared back. Angelo picked me up at 11 a.m. We drove to Grant Park in silence. The day was cold and gray, wind whipping off Lake Michigan. Tourists clustered around Buckingham Fountain, taking photos. I'll be at the hot dog cart, Angelo said. 20 feet away. If anything feels wrong, you signal me. How? Take off your watch and hold it in your left hand. I nodded and got out of the car. My hands were shaking, but I forced myself to walk calmly to the fountain. I stood there, waiting, the folded papers in my jacket pocket. At exactly noon, a man in an expensive gray suit sat down on the bench beside me. He was in his 60s, silver-haired, with cold blue eyes I'd seen 100 times on television. Senator Theodore Hastings smiled. Miss Mason, thank you for meeting me. You're bigger than I expected, I said, keeping my voice level. Usually people send intermediaries for this kind of thing. Hastings chuckled. This matter is too important to delegate. He glanced around the park, casual, but I could see him checking for threats. Do you have the ledgers? Do you have $5 million? His smile froze. I offered $50,000. That was before I read them. Before I saw your name on every third page. Before I realized you've been dirty since 1987. I pulled out the folded papers and held them just out of his reach. Monthly payments. $50,000 each. In exchange for voting down anti-racketeering legislation. For blocking FBI funding. For protecting the Don's construction companies. Hastings' face went pale, then red. You have no idea what you're playing with. I know exactly what I'm playing with. My mother died protecting these ledgers. Now it's my turn. I stood up. $5 million. Immunity in writing. And a guarantee that no one comes after me, or anyone I care about. You have 48 hours, or what? Or I give everything to the FBI and every major news outlet simultaneously. Hastings grabbed my wrist, hard. You won't live long enough. Take your hand off me, Senator. I said it loud enough that tourists turned to look. Angelo started moving toward us from the hot dog cart. Hastings released me immediately, his politician smile snapping back into place. Forgive me. You've startled me with your demands. He straightened his tie. I need proof that you have what you claim. I handed him the 3 copied pages. He read them quickly, his face going white again. These are copies. The originals are somewhere safe. Along with 47 other ledgers just like them. Where? You'll find out when I have my money and my immunity deal. 48 hours, Senator. I turned and walked away, my legs shaking so badly I thought they might collapse. Angelo fell into step beside me. We didn't speak until we were in his car, driving away. You just threatened a U.S. senator, he said. I know. He could have you killed. He could have had me killed already. He needs those ledgers. As long as I have them, I'm valuable. I looked out the window at the city passing by. My mother played this game for 10 years. I can play it for 48 hours. We went back to Vincent's garage. I spent the rest of the day photographing every page of every ledger, uploading everything to 3 separate cloud storage accounts with instructions to release the files publicly if anything happened to me. Angelo watched me work. You've thought this through. My whole life, people have underestimated me because I came from nothing. Foster kid, high school dropout, storage unit flipper. I looked up from the camera. But I'm my mother's daughter. She was smart enough to keep the Dawn secrets for a decade. I'm smart enough to cash them in. At 8 p.m., my phone rang. Hastings, Miss Mason, I've given your proposal serious consideration. And $3 million. That's my final offer. The immunity deal is impossible. Too many people would need to sign off. But I can guarantee your safety. Not good enough. $5 million and immunity, or the ledgers go public. You're bluffing? Try me, Senator. 47 hours left. I hung up. Angelo was staring at me. You're playing chicken with a man who's had people killed. He's scared. I can hear it in his voice. That's good, or it's very, very bad. They came for me at 3 a.m. I was sleeping in the garage, not wanting to risk going home. The crash of the door being kicked in jerked me awake. 3 men in ski masks rushed in, guns drawn. Where are the ledgers? The lead man's voice was flat, professional. I was already holding my phone, thumb on the emergency button I'd programmed. Safe deposit box. 3 different banks. If I don't check in every 12 hours, my lawyer releases everything to the press. You don't have a lawyer. Angelo Russo. He's had copies of these ledgers for 30 years. He was my mother's insurance policy, and now he's mine. I was making it up as I went, praying it sounded believable. The men looked at each other. The lead one spoke into a radio. She's got fail-safes. Multiple copies. Lawyer involved. A voice crackled back. Abort. Return to base. They left as quickly as they'd come. I sat there shaking for 10 minutes before I could move. Then I called Angelo. They just tried to grab me. Madonna. Are you hurt? No. I told them you had copies. That you were my mother's lawyer. Was that okay? A long pause. It was brilliant. And it happens to be true. Your mother did give me copies. Just in case. His voice softened. I've been sitting on them for 27 years, wondering if this day would come. Hastings called at 6 a.m. That was a mistake. My associates acted without my approval. You have my apologies. Your associates just committed home invasion with weapons. I could go to the police, but you won't. Because then you'd have to explain the ledgers. He paused. $4 million. Immunity deal in writing. Signed by the U.S. Attorney General. That's as far as I can go. I looked at Angelo, who'd driven to the garage the moment I called. He nodded slowly. Deal, I said. But I want half the money up front. $2 million transferred to an account I specify. Today, the immunity deal signed and notarized. Then you get half the ledgers. The other half gets delivered when the remaining $2 million clears. That's not how this works. That's exactly how this works. I don't trust you, Senator. You just sent armed men to terrorize me. We do this my way, or we don't do it at all. You have 12 hours to make it happen. I hung up again. Angelo whistled. You're negotiating like you've done this before. I'm terrified. But I'm also done being poor and scared. At 2 p.m., my phone pinged. A bank transfer notification. $2 million had been deposited into the new account Angelo helped me set up that morning. I stared at the number, my hands shaking. It's real, I whispered. Half of it is. Angelo said, don't celebrate until you have the immunity deal and the second payment. At 4 p.m., a courier delivered a manila envelope to the garage. Inside was a signed immunity agreement from the U.S. Attorney General's office, granting me full immunity from any prosecution related to the Castellano ledgers in exchange for my cooperation. It was notarized, official, legal. I called Hastings. I have the money and the deal. You'll get your ledgers, where and when? Tomorrow. Navy Pier, noon. I'll bring 24 ledgers. You bring confirmation that the second $2 million is ready to transfer. How do I know you'll deliver the rest after? Because unlike you, Senator, I keep my word. My mother taught me that. I ended the call. Angelo put his hand on my shoulder. Your mother would be proud. I wasn't sure if I believed that. But I was alive, and I was winning, and that had to count for something. Navy Pier was crowded with tourists despite the cold. I carried a locked briefcase containing exactly 24 ledgers. Angelo was somewhere in the crowd, watching. I'd also called Troy and told him to be nearby, just in case. The more eyes, the better. Hastings appeared at noon precisely, flanked by 2 men in suits. His face was calm, but I could see the tension around his eyes. "The ledgers," he said. I set the briefcase on a bench between us. The confirmation of transfer first. He showed me his phone. A banking app with a pending transfer of $2 million. It releases when I press this button. Press it. Ledgers first. We stared at each other. Finally, I unlocked the briefcase and turned it toward him. He looked inside, flipped through 3 ledgers quickly, then pressed the button on his phone. My phone buzzed. "Transfer complete. The rest," he asked, "will be delivered to an address you specify within 24 hours. You have my word." I closed the briefcase. "Our business is concluded, Senator. Don't contact me again." I turned and walked away, my heart hammering, waiting for a gunshot that never came. I kept my word. The next day, I had the remaining 23 ledgers delivered to a P.O. box Hastings had specified. I kept 1 ledger back, the one with the most damaging information about him. Insurance, in case he ever came after me again. Angelo helped me close out the cloud accounts and destroy the copied pages. "What will you do now?" he asked. "Disappear for a while. Maybe travel." I've never left Illinois. I looked at the bank balance on my phone. $4 million minus taxes. More money than I'd ever imagined having. I'm going to set up a trust fund for kids aging out of foster care. Like I did. Give them a chance I never had. Your mother would like that. I thought about the woman I barely remembered. Who'd worked for a mob boss to support her daughter? Who'd hidden ledgers that could destroy powerful men? Who'd died in a car accident that maybe wasn't an accident at all? "I hope so," I said quietly. 2 weeks later, Senator Hastings announced he wouldn't seek re-election, citing health concerns. 6 months after that, he died of a heart attack. The obituaries called him a statesman, a public servant, a man of integrity. I knew better. But I also knew when to stay silent. I'm writing this from a small house in Oregon, far from Chicago, far from storage auctions and rusty safes and secrets that could kill. Angelo sends me postcards sometimes, though he never writes anything important. Just weather's nice or thinking of you. I've started a foundation called the Claire Mason Trust, helping foster kids pay for college or trade school or whatever dreams they're brave enough to chase. Every time I write a check, I think about my mother. Keeping ledgers in perfect script. Protecting a daughter she knew she might not live to see grow up. I still have that 1 ledger, locked in a safe deposit box. Just in case. Because I learned something from all of this. Having nothing makes you vulnerable, but having something people want makes you dangerous. I bought a storage unit at auction. It contained the Don's missing ledgers. It also contained my mother's love letter to me, written in the only way she knew how. By giving me power. By giving me a choice. I chose to survive. I chose to win. I chose to turn secrets into security and fear into freedom, and that's a better inheritance than money could ever buy.